asking me how they gonna fight the IRS. And I'm asking them, that's what you think you want to start with? You think you want to start with the IRS, and you want to work every day, get the paycheck, and you decide that you want to start with the IRS. So I already know they don't understand nothing.
You know, can I ask something about, because I just had someone email me about, they put in a W-2 to terminate their taking, and they did that with their job, and everything stopped, except, they said, but then FICA came, it seemed suddenly that FICA, federal insurance contribution, they were still taking that out, and so she was calling, she was saying, well, what do I do, like that. But the simplicity of it is that the IRS, of course, is a private corporation. The deductions are voluntary contributions, which means you can at any time, if you have the understanding, terminate the contribution because it's voluntary. But then the IRS hides behind the job that you have, and the job that you have only takes out deductions because they have a contract with the IRS to be in business along with their state license, etc., to agree to offer you the W-4 when you get on a job, or 2, whatever it is, and that offer is complete once they offer it, but you don't have to accept it. So really, it's simple to just use that posting that they have that's supposed to be at every job that says that it is a voluntary, if you read it, contribution, and that it can be terminated at the will of the employee. So that is really a very, very simple thing to terminate based on those facts right there. Based on that, it's not like you're really fighting, it's how you do it.
But let's talk about that for a minute. It's not about what's supposed to be, it's about what is.
However,
that all employers are agents of, and the IRS will call that employer and instruct that employer in what to do, and that employer will comply.
But see, here's the deal, though, because I'm going to tell you what I know because I've done it. So I can speak on what I've done, and I can speak on what I know. I can speak on what I have assisted others. At the same time, that's where it comes in at. The IRS will call that employer because that employer has a contract with the IRS. You don't.
Exactly.
All right. So when you have understanding, overstanding, and understanding that the contract, the agreement is with the employer and the IRS, then you come at it without giving them all your ammunition at one time. You come at it and from that perspective, and then it does happen because the IRS is hiding now behind the employer, and you don't want trouble with your employer. But at the same time, like when you know what's going on, as we said earlier, you got to know what the components are so that you know how to approach it. As an example, you know, when the last job that I had to do this with, what I did, I came in and I gave my status. At that time, I had been naturalized, nationalized, crossed over, whatever it was, from been all of that. And my status, and I said, don't pay taxes, etc. like that, right? And so they looked it up with their accounting firm, right? Well, our accounting firm says that, this is not valid, or we can't find. I said, really? I said, well, they must. So now I'm holding back. Now, I didn't give them the other thing with all the laws. I didn't give them that, the legislative part yet. I said, oh, really? They did investigation? Oh, well, I brought the next day the actual case laws. They must not have done a very thorough investigation. Here's, I'm sure they're not going to want to go against law. Like that is how you approach it. As an example, someone else would take this, and then, of course, it was done. It was not a problem. Literally, was not a problem. But I know that the times now are a little different because the IRS is very desperate. But like I said earlier, they're being charged with, sponsoring state benefits. But say, if I gave the same paperwork to someone else, which did happen, and they did not read it, and they did not know how to approach it, and they went to their employer, and they gave them the entire stack of papers, including the instructions instructions that I gave them on what to do.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? So from that point, I was like, I'm not going to ever give this to anyone. They didn't even read it. They gave the instructions on what to do next and what to do, period, to the employer. It made no sense. They didn't even read it. So now the next sister who, well in this case was sisters, who asked, they came and they met with me. We sat down. I said that this is what you have to do. I made sure they understood, but I figured if I could give you these papers, you're at least going to read them. Yeah, assumption. Don't make assumptions. So I'm saying to you that you're looking at it from a correct perspective that it is the IRS that you're fighting because they're hiding behind the employers. But once you know the components of how this thing works, you yourself break that down. Like, for instance, with the job that I was with, you know what I said to them? And they don't expect you to say it. I said, well, listen, I played really placated. Well, listen, I know that, if you don't offer this to me, you'll get fined by the state. Did you think they expected me to know that? No, of course not. But I knew that. I said, I know that you'll get fined, but I tell you what we could do. I could write a letter saying that you did offer it to me. That's how you handle that. Because their contract is with the state, with the IRS, state license, all that kind of stuff, to make sure that, in fact, if they don't offer you that W-4 when you come to the job, they get fined by them. Why? Because they agreed to that. You didn't. So you would say to them, I know that you'll get fined if you didn't offer this to me, so what I will do is I'll write a letter, if you'd like, from me saying that you did, in fact, offer it to me. That's how you have to approach it. And if you don't, but you cannot approach it that way if you don't know the components of what is actually going on. And then don't give them all your guns at one time, because if you give them all at one time, you're going to come back with one blanket answer. You don't do that. So when I said that, they changed it a little. When they said their accounting firm was checking it out or whatever, and they said that this isn't valid, well, then I came and bam, laid the laws. You see what I'm saying? Well, really? Well, they investigated it? Well, I've done, here, this is some investigation. I'm sure there must be a mistake. I know they don't want to break the law. And when I did that, done. Check was written. Do you see? Mm-hmm. All right.
When you speak with an intelligent tone, you'll get a favorable.
Well, a reply.
They'll render.
That's correct. You had your
Answer the
hand.
question.
Oh, the question was in. Okay. Yeah.
Islam. I just wanted to say, on top of what you was just saying, in law, when they have contracts like that, because they're all U.S. citizens, i.e., they're all corporations, like the IRS, the job you might go apply for, it's all corporations. But in law, it's called an artificial monopoly. In law, that's what it's called. And check out rvbaypublications.com, Monopoly, Asiatic American Connection, for info on that. Just because that's really what it is. It's just an artificial monopoly. And it's back to what Taj been saying, is us claiming the estate. Because when we claim the estate, that sets up the diversity, because if you have a true standing to a certain portion of the Earth's surface, you have the right to a natural monopoly. They don't have that. They're artificial jurisdictions. That's why they have artificial monopolies. And all of that boils down to violations of personal liberty. Just wanted to throw that on there. And as far as learning on the path, like you were saying, it's like you have to go down the path, because that's where all the answers are. You can't, you say, well, don't start, you can't start here. Like, true, it's a starting point, but you have to go down the path to find the answers, because that's where they're at. They're on the path. Think about it. Dorothy could have never realized she was trying to find herself if she didn't go through the illusion of the yellow brick road. If she would have stayed at the starting point, she'd have never found out the Oz was a fraud. But they had to go down the road. And that's what the good witch told her. She said, I could have told you, but you had to see for yourself. That's what she told her in the end. So I just wanted to add that on to what you was just saying.
You know what else goes with that? You ever heard them say, if you want to run with the big dogs, you got to get off the porch? That's what it means.
She had to go through the storm too.
I have a question for Paul. It goes back to what you said earlier. How long have you been listening to that voice?
My whole life.
Okay,
That's
that's
right.
good.
That's right.
It's really good.
And that was one of the most important statements made tonight. Is that
You know,
listen to
that's
that voice.
interesting what she's saying, because people who go down these roads, the
They
truth
ain't
of the
listening.
matter is it's been all their life. They are people who are not gonna be, you might find yourself disassociated from your family. They absolutely think you're crazy.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, who's raising their hand? All right, raise your hand.
You say it's a waste of time.
What's gonna happen? Because that inner voice, as the sister's asking you, that you mentioned, you answer all your life. It's been all your life. And the path that you took is leading you to where you are today. In fact, if all of those disassociations never happened, you could not be who you are right now.
Exactly.
I seen it myself, but what did I tell you, a week, 2 weeks ago? I was sleeping, he was in the bed, sleep. And just in the middle of the night, you know how you, like, somebody's watching you, and I just woke, eyes open up, and it was 3 apparitions standing there. First was like one big blob, and as I said, well, I must be seeing things. I closed my eyes and looked in, and it came closer and started forming. There were 3 people standing over it.
That's interesting.
I couldn't make out whether they were male or female. I felt very calm. I was
They were
not afraid.
extension of you, though. They weren't really 3 people. When you have dreams, the people that are in the dreams
I
are
was
really
wide
like,
awake.
That's the thing. It's
well,
not a
this,
dream.
but that's even, huh?
That's not a dream.
Oh, that was in a dream. So then you call those people to you, those apparitions, as you call it, to you. See, when you ask for something, you get it. You might not get it the way you want it, but you go
I
get it.
told him that. I told that too. But
That's what you
he
said.
said he always thought that somebody would always protect him.
What do you want to
So
say?
I thought maybe, you know, it could have been, you know, somebody was watching over him.
You're protected.
It was on his side of the bed, but I always sleep this way, facing him. They were on his side of the bed.
So
and
they were behind him?
Looking at me.
They were behind him looking at you,
Right.
watching over him.
Yeah.
So they didn't try to do anything untoward or any energy
I
that was not fine.
felt good. I mean, I just kept, I was, didn't turn TV on, nothing. I just opened my eyes and closed my eyes. For about 20 minutes this went on. I was like, well, whoever it is, they wonder where I don't feel scared. You know, so I just enjoyed it and just
Oh, I'm
stayed
sure
quiet,
they
see if they
would
had
as well.
anything to say, you know.
Was you able to
And, but
move?
nobody said
Oh,
anything.
yeah, were you able
Was
to
you able to
move?
move?
That's a good
Yeah.
question. You weren't like feeling like you were
Yeah,
trying
but I
to.
didn't want to get up disruptly and so because things dissipate, you know.
Right,
I just try to lay still. I can move.
Well, aren't you too special?
Like terrorists.
You
That's interesting, yes. Oh, no,
Oh, yeah, it's long.
yeah.
Can't you file? I've had experience with a 1099.
What do you mean?
If you file a 1099 in taxes, you actually get all your money back.
Oh, 1099 OID. Okay, what, OID, 1099 OID.
But your self-employment,
Oh, right, well, that's the same thing, but,
Reimbursement.
yeah, because, right, it's the reimbursement, because see, really, the really real deal is, this whole thing about income tax time and return is really originally based on the fact that Moors were to get back whatever they spend at all of these corporations. That's what the OID is for. So you have to be in your proper person, really. And if you got away with it before, you won't be getting away with it in the future, because it's, you know, it's coming down to that. But that's really what the whole income tax return time is, so-called income tax, because it's not about income to us.
right.
All right, but that's really what it's about. We were supposed to have been doing OIDs, been saving all of the receipts to get back what really was ours that we spent on our own land. And now that we're finding out, you know, it's getting heavy.
I mean, I'm still a little inexperienced,
Yeah.
but I've had the experience because I've been wanting to be so independent. But I take his stance. You know, I was tired of working like 70 hours a week.
Well, but here's the thing: when you work for yourself, now let's clear something up here. A lot of people think that they're going to quit work, retire, and sit back and enjoy life. That's death. That's
Right,
death.
right,
You
of
have
course
to be
it is.
moving. So if you're working for yourself, You are working 70 hours.
Oh, sure,
Matter of
that's
fact,
right.
you're working 24/7.
Right.
This is the big mistake that they have told you.
Right.
They have told you, like, it looks easy. It ain't easy.
Just in my
not.
perception, that if I'm working for somebody,
Yeah.
I'm contracting with them.
If you're a contractor.
And like
no.
I was telling the brother, I said, well, if I'm offering you my services, even though you're an employer, I can contract with you as an individual, even if I'm working with other people.
If you have a trade, because see, that's where it's at right now. And even Obama came in and said, what do you know how to do? It's about contracting out what is it that you know how to do. Don't look at what somebody else is doing.
Sure,
and
sure,
they
right,
do.
right.
Find out what you are to do. And see, because the real deal is this. There's only two things in the world that you can do. Sell, buy, or sell. And that is either a product, be it a glasses, a pencil, or eraser, a product itself, across the line. Here's the product, you give me the note.
Or a service.
Or a service.
Right.
Nothing else on the planet can be bought or sold or transferred or no transactions. It's either a product or service. Now you're either going to work for someone else who sells what? A product or service.
Right.
Or you're going to work for yourself dealing with and selling a product or service. Now, what they've done for those who work for themselves, because remember, with the original merchants, has made you feel like you're a hustler, and you know, and then the license came in so that they can get a piece of what you sell. All of that is erased from you when you recognize you're a national, aboriginal, indigenous Moor. You don't have to answer to those things. So I understand what you're saying, and what had just came in with the Obama thing is that people started thinking about, what can I do? Because see, everybody here is here for a purpose. And if they really were doing their purpose, they wouldn't have time to be worried about someone else's. Because they'd be really busy doing them.
Yes,
And then
ma'am.
as we all come up from that pyramid, you know, because it's a big wide base.
That's right.
And we're all coming up that pyramid to the mountaintop, to the climax. I don't see you when you first started climbing. You don't see me, etc. But as we get to the top, we reach out and we can touch, not only see each other, but we can touch those who are in the same direction. Because everybody must be in the same direction. And if not, then, you know, there's a cleaning up. What is it called? Purging. Yeah, a purging that has to be done, and different people have to, you know, you have to get out of each other's way. Yes.
And to add into the system, whoever is trying to find out what's your purpose, go search your sign.
Thank you. Well, that's astrology, you know.
Search your
You know,
sign, you'll find yourself.
That's interesting because if, you know, you sitting there, right, and a lot of times we do this. We judge other people. We ain't looked at ourselves. First of all, you might be sitting there with a trinity that's screwed up. And you're going to sit and look at somebody else with, and you look at yourself first.
That's right.
Because you attract what's wrong with you in that respect. Because you haven't corrected it yet. So if you're sitting there and you got a sun and moon and a rising, and it's all disrupted, causing you to have some problems, then that's what you're going to reflect out to other people. Yeah. Yeah.
If this one,
This brother, I'm sorry. You
just to make a comment real quick. Lately, when I do meet people, you know, I'm a Gemini in Cancer, y'all, so I know how I am. I'm emotional, spontaneous, actor, and communicator.
And the minstrel, the court jester, all at the same time.
But what it is, I ask people now, instead of your occupation, what do you do? I ask people, what gifts do you have, and what are you doing with them?
Yeah.
And there's a 30-second, 60-second
Pause.
Like,
They either can't answer you or they're defensive because you asked.
well, they normally would say their occupation.
Oh, you mean their job, the J.O.B.?
Yeah, and then I would correct them and say, no. What I'm talking about is, what are your gifts and what do you do?
They don't know their own gifts.
Yeah.
They talk and crap about
And then when I let people know I appreciate you, they are so used to, I appreciate it. When I say I appreciate you, it's like they have this resistance to.
They're right. Because, you know, we must learn to love instead of hate, and that's what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
This brother back here.
I wanted to just try to elaborate a little bit, even in reference to the tax thing, and
I've been fighting, not fighting, but going to that jugular vein, even in a commercial venue like my brother here with a 1099, or even when I happen to sign a W-2 form, I will present, like you said, some of my documents in reference to what Drew Ali has set for us through going through some classes like Savage was talking about. It took me a minute to get to this point, even though my parents already had me nationalized. But coming to the science with here, with Todd, we even chasing UCC ones, went and did the footwork in the state capitol in Harrisburg, got some debts rescinded, right? And found out some stuff like Taj blew me out of the water when I first met him, and reference to a fraud, right? With a fraud with the UCC one and trying to get some debts suspended. But the tax thing that you're talking about, and a brother was talking about the 1099, I didn't know until recently coming to this class here that it's more of more tax forms under a 1099, a 10 something something, and a 10 something something, and a 10 something something that continually makes them not be able to even take any of that fake on fake federal notes. But we used to call it back in the day bordering. I'm going to provide you a service. I'm going to provide you a service. Bartering.
Oh, bartering.
Bartering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even with some of my, like the brother was just saying, what is some of your attributes, or what is some of your skills? Like some of the skills that I've got over the years, like cooking and construction and home remodeling. Then the last one was truck driving. Always use 1099. Always fought with, they always say, look, we have to send this to our tax agent. I said, well, let me see what you're going to get from your tax agent, right? And please send it in writing. One of the things that I learned early on from some of the Moors that used to tell me, even when they worked for the city of Philadelphia School District, and the sheikh said he never paid taxes. He never paid taxes. And when I tell my family and some of my other members that's even Moors like me that went to the Moor Science Temple, they say, you know they're going to come get you. Because, my family don't want to hear about none of this. I said, you got a nationality card like I got it. Your nationality card said 2 months, mine said 3 months. You went to the Moor Science Temple like me, but you're going to play into this fictitious government that has no jurisdiction. Because they don't even want to hear, like you said, they disown me. My own family members that went to the Moor Science Temple with me don't want to hear nothing.
But see, that's a little different because your situation is slightly different in that you're saying that your family came from the Moor Science Temple background, and the division that exists there is one thing and very special and needs to have very special attention when talking about it. All right.
I love you, sister. Mom, I love you. You heard what she said. I love that. See, that's straight to the gut, though. That's headhunting stuff right there.
Well,
even with my sister and my brother. Even with my sister and my brother is the oldest. He's the oldest. And he just purged this again or said something to me in reference to, yo, how you going to get a job and you still refusing to pay taxes?
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. That's very special and needs very special attention when dealing with you.
Yeah, but I don't argue with that. It's a waste of energy.
When I said the split family, I meant that for most of us who walk this path. Because remember, the scripture says, and those ancient writings belong to our ancestors, that the road is narrow. The road is narrow because there ain't many on it. Period. That's why it's narrow.
Islam. My take on taxes is I've been working my whole life and they never step up to the plate with saying that they offer you X, Y, and Z if you pay. So why should I pay if they're not going to offer me really anything in return?
What do you mean? First of all, why would they offer you something if they're taking something away from you?
Because they say, well, you should pay taxes just because
everybody else pays it. Everybody else pays it, so
yeah.
Everybody else pays it.
Here's the thing. You're talking about paying taxes to a corporation. That has nothing to do with you.
That's what I'm saying. Why should I pay them? They ain't working for the money.
Why should they charge taxes? They don't even have the authority.
Interjection.
But if you
Interjection.
Concept.
A 14th Amendment? Yes.
You're still obligated underneath that. You're obligated to pay.
All right. Now this is what. When you're saying, now this is back. Now listen to the statement, because you're close to what is correct. Taxes are not what you call paid as they claim paying. because you pay. When you're saying citizen, you're saying nationality. Taxes are extracted for the support of government, which must be specifically identified, and the government and the people must be of one free national name. That's number one. So the same principle, and this is what the assumption is, and this is where they recognize that the people are ignorant. When somebody says you don't pay taxes, you want to qualify, pay taxes to who? I'm not Russian. I don't pay Russian tax, right? And they'll say, oh, we're not talking about Russia. I say, well, name the nation state that you're talking about. And name the people who are agents, collectors for that nation state. Because the nation and the tax collector are one and the same. And the nationality must match the nation. And then you must be a member of that nation. That's all over the world. Isn't that very simple?
Yes, sir.
So what happens if they can get you into the guilt argument of arguing whether or not you pay taxes, wrong concept. Taxes are paid to the nation state that must be identified, and the nation state and your nationality must match.
Right.
And the collector for that nation state must have a delegation of authority from that state to collect that said tax. That's how you're supposed to argue.
And what nation are we
You don't not pay taxes, you always pay taxes.
Islam, then that must be similar in Orthodox Islam, what they call jizya. Jizya tax is for the taxing of the community for government running. Then you have zakat. Zakat is supposed to be I guess for each masjid, which would be district-wide for the alms for the homeless or whatever. And then you have sadaqah, which is just alms giving. And blah, 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 blah.
More or less for charity.
Yeah. So it's like different tiers.
Yeah, different tiers, but your initial so-called state tax, when you're saying state, you're saying nation. And this is
not corporation.
This is what now you got it. So what occurs is when people don't know the distinction between natural person, corporate person, when they don't know that citizen, nationality go together. Whenever you say citizen, you just said nationality. Then you're supposed to ask them, what nation state you talking about? Russian? You know, that's why a lot of times you have to use the example, say people say, did you pay your Russian rice tax? They would immediately say, oh, I pay no Russian, I'm not Russian. But yet they can come with that specious argument and get away with it when they didn't name the state. It's called a specious argument. Yes. It's a straw argument. And what you recognize a lot of times when we're analyzing things, people are up on it if you give them a straw. If you want to make a straw argument relative to, say, all capital letters, or transmitting utility in a European name, etc. But yet you can present an argument like that and they don't recognize the straw. That's what we have to fix. Do you understand? Nationality and citizenship go together. And what they recognize is that so many of the people are incapable of recognizing the specious argument. Then they start getting into subject matter when status has not been set. And they get away, in other words, if they don't get skin the cat from one angle, they skin them of another angle. And that's when they recognize these people don't understand nationality. When they start making arguments, conditions of tax and non-tax based on the argument of taxation itself, taxation based on citizens' obligations without naming the citizen state. You understand? It is no different than a corporate entity collecting a tax, and then when you ask them, well, say you have tax, you have a non-obligatory status, right? And they say, well, store policy says, well, if you know the policy, that means you know the law. Then let me see your tax agent card, because if you know to tax, right? You know what condition not to tax. If you're making a judicial decision that's positive in law, if you can't back it up, then you must relent. In other words, if you can't name the law that gives you the authority to tax, then you have no authority to claim a tax.
Ignorance of the law.
Exactly. And so what happens is that people allow them to make statements like this, not knowing how to come back at them. You know, and this is back to nationality. You know, nationality covers many fronts. And the refinement of the nationality argument must be quality and purposely explained to our people, because what you see, they'll make it solid on one level and then lose out right on the other side of the coin like they never even looked at it. And the issue of taxes is it. You know, even registration is a tax. License is a tax. When you go into these stores, just like we're talking to Kenny today. I ran into Kenny on our way down here. And he was going to meet with some brothers and sisters that's going to sell him a tax card for $250 and some other stuff. You know, whatever. The game continues. You know, and the status cannot be sold or bought. The non-tax obligation or non-obligatory status of both the indigenous people and the sovereigns of the land are inherent. They're not political, they're not judicial, they're not legislative, you know. And even when people begin to offer such things within a package and people are considering it, that's an indicator that they don't understand nationality. That must be fixed. Now, a servant is worthy of his hire. If somebody going to, you know, mow your lawn, you know, do something for you, do your homework for you, you know, if you want to compensate them, that's cool. But the birthright and the non-obligatory status, it exists by divine right and by fundamental political right. It's not a privilege. It needs no legislation. You understand? Legislation only affirms its existence. And so when they're talking in the Constitution, and when they imply with a misnomer, like Indian not taxed, etc., the implication is, although that's a fraud on the surface, the indication is not a member of that, they're not a member of that party. You're not a member of that club. You're not obligated to pay dues to a club of which you're not a party. Islam.
Islam, Brother Taj, would you say that the biblical story of Jacob and Esau is the message of the stealing of the birthright? One, the importance of it, and two, the theft of it?
Yes, and the bowl of red pottage, your red flag, you know, and then when you look at the brother, he was of the field, right? So he coming in from the field. Now understand, the field implies if you got the field, you got the food, and you're tired, which means you have not even worked your own field. That means you don't even understand your own estate. And you're going to sell your birthright for a bowl of red pottage? And then let them coerce you with that, says, look, I'll let you have this bowl of red pottage if you sell me your birthright. And so God was angry at him for hating his own birthright. This is basically talking about us. You know, and so we gave up our birthright to gratify our lower selves. But then you understand that lower self is the aggregate, the three aggregate lower bodies, represented by the three lower chakras. You know, and that must be slain, which includes the ego and the personality, which is only a vehicle to do work. You know, but the personality is not even us.
So that's equal to the Jacob and Esau, Cain and Abel, and
saying his brother.
Yes.
And see, and it's not Jacob, it's Jacob. See?
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? What was the other one? Cain and Abel, Jacob and Esau, and there's another pair in the Bible.
Correct, parable.
But I know that was, I don't know if it was David and Absalom, where I think Absalom wanted his father's throne. Huh?
Yeah.
Absalom? Yeah, he wanted his father's throne. And so, again, going after the heir, going after, you know, this wanting to, what do you call it, a covert operation. Or usurping. Thank you.
Usurpation.
Yeah, usurpation of the throne and everything. Wow.
Character.
Wow.
There goes your character building, carpenter's tools. You know, building character. And also the capacity to be willing to slay those lower bodies. Once you discover that that's what you got to do. This is why a lot of people, once they really get spiritual instruction, become stagnated because they recognize they got to slay their personality.
Anybody else? Oh, question. This is going in another added on direction. When I first came into the Moor Science Temple of America, I was, I guess, coerced to put my name on my attribute and add day to my Social Security card and driver's license. Good move, bad move. I felt now that I think about it, it wasn't a good move. Can you kind of elaborate on?
Well, when you really understand what took place with Skull and Bones member Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the things have really actually been misrepresented. Because with the Social Security, actually, we were supposed to be reimbursed. And it's actually called a 1099-R. You're talking about 1099-R recoupment? Recoupment. Is that what you're talking about? 1099-R recoupment. And see, even with the filing, with no drawing with the filing, your authority, the authority, 1099?
Yes.
Do you understand? Now, the issue with us as Moorish Americans has been more or less the treachery that has been in the administrative levels of the movement with what is called the sellout, and having not taught these people these things. And this is also why their property was supposed to be put within the Moorish Holy Temple of Science and Trust. Because the corporates, so what it allows the corporate entity states to claim the estates by virtue of hypothecating their properties through the marriage license, birth certificate, social security, driver's license, and put it in their trust. And that's, you know, the creation of the Sestacute Trust. And when you look at all of the, because this is why when you look into congressional records, that the mortgages and the liens and stuff did not occur till after 1913. Prior to 1913, everything was allodial. You know, but of course, the European had been stealing or is cheating the properties of the Asiatics by virtue of the Asiatics transacting business with those European names without their titles.
So, okay, let me get it right. Okay, so after 1913,
that's when you get the dead pledges.
And they did this caper. Then they said, you Europeans can come over here in the 1920s and go to Ellis Island, y'all come citizen. Is that what that
even as they're selling citizenship now? And this is another reason why the Europeans are worried right now, was after they started talking trash, you know, to the Mexicans, etc. And Obama came to the defense of the nationals, saying that before y'all was us, you was them, and then named their nationalities.
Yeah, Obama, this is it.
Yeah.
Railed them nice too.
Yeah, and so you understand the signification in the background is that these Europeans know sooner or later they're going to impose a nationality card, and they can't produce one.
Yep.
That's on the news. That's what they're trying to do right now. They're about to go back and session
hit that.
on Monday.
Hit that.
No, it was, I got an email this morning. My mother touched on it briefly earlier. But from my understanding, they're having the Congress, the House is having a session on a national identification card for, quote unquote, the United States. I guess that's what it's going to say. And what they're trying to do is basically what we've done. But they don't have the standards, because no matter what they do, it's just going to expose their hand. And I pardon me for cutting you off. But on that note, with the ID card, what they're trying to do is, it doesn't matter where you was born at. Basically, they're going to try to claim that the United States is a national domicile.
United States, yeah.
Yeah, but it is not. North America, Northwest of Mexico is, but the United States is not a national domicile. And that's basically what they're trying to do to counter the intelligence that's out now. Because it's no coincidence that they're trying to push for this card at the height of all these Moors having nationality cards, like more than ever
because it's bringing the issue up, and they can't bury it anymore.
And not just that, that is claiming the land as our state and our national home.
Yes.
So they trying to cut that off. So now if you go get a job, you know, the employer, he just scans your ID like they do at the register, and everything comes up about you. You know, if it's your ID, the retina scan, that's what they're trying to do.
Oh, yes.
So that's what's on the table now. I don't know, it probably didn't blow up like that yet, but they're going back in session on this Monday.
And as you already know, the Europeans are making a lot of this argument because of Mexico, Mexicans, etc. Specifically, even though they're talking about other South Americans. Now notice that South Americans, and yet these are Europeans.
Right.
Yes, they are.
So even the color code system has to fall in order for them to even make that argument.
Because there's no such thing as South United States.
Not just that.
United States.
Yeah, not just that, but look.
Moorish United States.
But you got United States of Brazil.
Right.
Yeah. United States of San Salvador.
Right.
United States of Mexico. So United States is a political metaphor. What's the name of this particular United States? It's absent of a national name.
Yep.
See, so when they press it, all they're going to do is open up not a can of worms, a can of snakes. And they're all venomous. It's the truth. You know, and this is where they're having problems. The ignorance that's displayed by the people here does not expand off these shores. So the dynamics of the social engineering, the connotative linguistics that's used to secure the 14th Amendment in the North Gate does not apply elsewhere. Now, under protectorates, with Guam, Puerto Rico, etc., where the IRS is registered, that's why they have their registry in what you would call protectorate states, but they don't have it in what you would call the republic states proper, you see? And so, in making this argument to try to preserve the so-called middle class, because the argument's coming from them to the alleged head of government, i.e. the feds. Now, as the feds are dissolved, so are what you call any juristic citizenship. And keep in mind, and this is where it's important to keep in mind at all times, that the jus sanguinis, you know, versus jus soli. So the jus soli is all legislative citizenship. The sanguinis would be related to Aboriginal or indigenous people by blood, by birthright. So as they're making that argument, all of this stuff must be filtered out. And as soon as it starts filtering out, their argument is dead. They're in a catch-22. The other deal is, as we've made nationalization, open, which means anybody can go on multiple websites and get it, as long as it's not paid for. See, if it's paid for, it's a commercial activity, it's dead. You understand? Because it's a birthright. And the honor of nations, the supreme and sacred honor is on divine law and natural law. And this is why the U.S. corporation is trying to play in the background, trying to coin some gold and silver coins, while the IRS and the feds are printing more fiat, and then trying to act like they're offering this stuff to try to imply that they're stepping out of synergy. It matters not, they've already fired themselves.
That's right, it's gone, done.
You know what I mean? They are no different than, they're all partners.
And China is still buying U.S. Treasury bonds.
They're doing, can I explain that? Let me ask y'all something. Y'all know why China is doing anything with the United States?
Because they owe the debt. They
AIG, no, Asiatics about to take it over.
That's one. Two is, China will fall absent our commerce. That's right. China will fall absent our commerce. That's right. China just built the Three Gorge Dam. Y'all heard of that? Yeah. The largest damming project in the world history. It brought China into the modern age. Right. The commerce with us. The only reason it came into the modern age is to produce goods to be sold here. So China will do all that it can to keep by default.
The Titanic floats.
Because it's default market agreement. That's right. Because if we stop buying their stuff,
And we should.
they are done.
Yeah, come out of her, my people.
They're actually giving the U.S. gold.
If I can add on,
China giving the U.S. gold.
Please,
if I can add on, I hope, I trust. Anybody see that commercial where the brother was in China and he was giving a class to the youth and he was telling them why all great nations fell, why all the empires fell? Y'all saw that? Nobody else saw that?
They said we own them.
Yeah. It's a futuristic commercial, and it's a brother in China. It probably came out like 3 years ago. I think they aired it like 1 or 2 times, and then they took it off. But it's on YouTube. You can check it out on YouTube. If you just Google China
like they had a conference, like a conference table,
yeah. It's China's commercial about America, United States, and they're like in 2033, and he's explaining to these youth why all great nations fell. And he's saying that all of them fell because they forgot the principle that was great. You know what I'm saying? And he named a few empires, and then the last one he named was the United States. And this is 2033, and then he said now they work for us, since they forgot the great principles that made them great. Now they work for us. And this is 2033, so this is a futuristic message that's coming from them.
And the symbol is the 33.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
33 degrees.
Google that.
Behind on the screen.
Islam.
Google it. What? China what?
My inner voice is telling me that a lot of our history, after the Civil War was one of the greatest, one of the ruthless war fought in this land, and after it was fought, I believe a lot of so-called so-called black unconscious Moors, what they did is they sold that to Christianity and Masonry and stuff to keep this conspiracy going. I really feel that
now. So what we must explain when we're saying that. Make sure that we're talking about Christendom hegemony. Because if we just say Christianity like that, unqualified, while kind of true, it's not exactly that. It's the Christendom
hegemony. You break it down for me,
hegemony.
it was just it was all the ethers not caught it. I don't know how to bring it all down, but it's coming to me, you know. Like something coming to the Acacia records. I'm pulling off the Acacia records and stuff.
Islam.
Because of what appears to be a lawful command on the surface, many citizens, because of their respect for what appears to be the law,
are cunningly coerced into waiving their rights due to ignorance. And that's U.S. versus Minker. And the entire taxing and monetary systems are hereby placed under the UCC. That's the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. And as you can see, I think it was between 1966 and 1968 when corporate Texas was coerced into agreeing, and that's when they became uniform. About that time, between 66 and 68. You know, prior to that, they were just commercial codes. But they became uniform after they got blackmailed. You know, but it's back to really understanding the system, understanding how it works, etc. Keep in mind with the issue with China, the issue with multiple nations in the South nationalizing, the issue with the European nations not opening up any new so-called American accounts. And that's what these Europeans nationalizing or denouncing their U.S. citizenship and trying to open up accounts in Europe. They're shutting them down. So stuff's hitting the fan anyway.
And also, Taj, Australia is no longer using U.S. dollars, quote unquote, with China. That was announced 2 weeks ago.
Oh yes, and that's the same. And then they have the unaligned nations. So they have an assembly of unaligned nations that are operating like in the same principle as the United Nations, absent of U.S. and Britain, etc.
And don't forget Basel III compliance. Basel III compliance.
Basel?
Basel III, yeah. All currencies must have backing of substance.
B-A-Z?
B-A-S.
B-A-S-I-L.
B-A-S-I-l.
That's it then.
184.9.
They've been working on it. They've been working on it. They've been working on it. It's coming into fruition soon. But when it comes into fruition, it's going to bring in some heartache and pain.
Yes, that's it.
And that's why.
Basel III compliance. Y'all Google it. Y'all start learning about it. Start figuring out and tell everybody you know to get their money out them retirement funds that ain't going to be there.
Ain't no money, ain't
money
no credit and debits.
Whatever you want to call it, they think it's money. Tell them it's money. Tell them to read about Basel III so that they'll start trying to say they hide.
So are you saying they should invest that?
They should turn it into something real. Something real.
While they can still move it.
While they got a chance to. You know people been working 20 and 30 years. They got pensions laying around. They planning on them pensions. Them pensions is going to disappear at the drop of a hat.
They can't satisfy them anyway.
That's what the civil unrest is going to be. It's going to be the Europeans.
They're going to lose their mind.
Losing their mind. It's Moors that should
take cover.
To take cover, stay inside, have enough food for 3 months.
But the only way the Moors going to know to take cover is because they're not going to be in the distress that the Europeans are in.
They're going to go crazy.
Because you don't told them, hey, listen, y'all. Like y'all know I do this blog talk show. All I'm doing is telling people. People are hard-headed.
Rebellious.
Narrow is the path, ain't but a few gonna be on it.
Right.
Tell them to read about Basel III, and after you tell them to read about Basel III, tell them I'll just wash my hands. What happens, happens. All right? All right? Y'all tell everybody you love and care about, go learn about Basel III, because it's getting ready to hit. It's gonna hit any daggum day.
Well, you know, the mayor of Baltimore City, I think just started, or they're getting ready to implement, that those that are not public safety employees, non-public safety employees, they want them to start paying out of their pension, they want out of their payroll checks, 1%, 2%, on up to 5% every year into a pension plan. And this is what Baltimore City mayor just did. Matter of fact, Monday I went to city council meeting, and they had a city council meeting, and they were arguing at the city council meeting, and that's what the mayor's doing. She wants people who are non-public safety Not that they don't have armed rapid fire or whatever.
Non-public safety.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Expendable.
Yes, absolutely. But I actually thought that one of the reasons why they were having more of the Latino brothers, I don't want to say Latino, but our South American brothers and sisters coming in is also to get new revenue with birth certificates.
No, they're selling citizenship.
Yeah.
This was their agreement. Their agreement with world citizenship for people coming into the corporate entity is 500,000 notes invested in any business, etc.
Wow.
They would bypass the green card stuff. With the brothers and sisters from the South, they're going to do amnesty without amnesty. Because in accord with international law, they can't block them anyway. This is the real reason why they can't. This is why they have difficulty, because they're trying to pacify the middle-class Europeans here who have no nationality, when the brothers and sisters from the island are Americans, and these people who are complaining ain't even Americans, and they don't have a nationality card, and these are nationals. And so these are members, citizens of the American states.
Right.
And since the U.S. corporation has been dissolved,
yeah, the other thing that Brother Abdullah talks about a lot is the fact that how they changed the demographics of everything. You know, they were Italian, they were Spanish one day, and now they become white. They also doing it to bolster the numbers. You know, because as steady slipping away, it's out of their grasp. You know what I mean? They figured, you know, well, the confirmation is Obama being elected 2 times. You know, that they just can't rally the rally cry of American exceptionalism, code word for white supremacy. America, you know, that's what they use it for. You know what I mean?
and see, Obama's a national.
You know, and now they know. I mean, now they know that they are no longer the ruling class.
They're niggers, man.
Jigs up, man.
So they need not been in the first place. Their major problem is that we insisted on continuing to be black people and Christians.
Yes.
Wow.
Islam, so this thing about every state passing a law that same sex, is that to pull in
distraction?
It's to pacify, it's BS distraction.
Right.
This one must be, let's make this very clear.
And it's a true sign.
Let's make this very clear. Let's make this very clear. All of the states are dissolved.
Yes.
Now, there are any claims that they make in contradistinction to the Republic, right? All right. Now, the United States Republic. United States Republic versus
United States of. Colonial versus.
Right? Right? This is legitimate. This is legitimate under Constitution and treaty. This is illegitimate under the war powers. 1933, right? 1933. Right? Which is a code word for the subversion overthrow. So anything that comes under here is what states of, right?
Yes.
State as an example, right? State of New Jersey as an example, right?
Yes.
Right? That's de facto. Right? Now that's de jure. Now this is what we have to consider. Whenever the legislature within this body politic passes anything, it is not law, it's private corporate policy.
Okay.
When the Europeans, for purposes of their secret treaty of Verona, adjourned sine die, 61, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adjourned sine die, 1861. Without day, that gave them a window to introduce the Pope's rulership, which is what they were doing later incrementally, and what they were doing, like say with Woodrow Wilson, to counter Noble Drew Ali. So in 1913, after Drew Ali set up the old Canaanland temple, they met with the representatives of popes of Rome, sold the government. All right? So what they sold was themselves. Because keep in mind, all debts and contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of that Constitution shall be binding against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. And all treaties made or which shall be made in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land. So all they did was dismiss themselves and the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, the supreme law of the land. Now who's the heirs? Problem. They still call themselves black. Right. And they still what? Playing these mystical games with Noble Drew Ali. Whether they believe him or not, whether they think he's a prophet or not, all this kind of things. And their estate has been delivered back to them. And we have to have meetings like this still trying to convince these people that they're Moors, which makes them incompetent. Collectively, not every individual. Now the Europeans, knowing this, know that when the heirs to the estate begin to declare their nationality, they don't have to capture those documents, they become dead paper. Do you understand? And see, so what occurs is, under the feudal democracy, which is unconstitutional and is foreign, any issues made by them in the name of law is indeed not law. Right. And can never be law. Okay. They're only dealing with policy. The only thing they can get away with, put it this way, is the heirs continuing to play this black game of incompetence, and by default, their de facto position gives the appearance of standing simply because the heirs are still on drugs. Well, really, you know, they say, you know, when they're saying religion is the opiate for the masses, what they mean the dogma, that these people, they're still under the mysticism of the church. Yes. Therefore, by their own agreement, they belong to the popes of Rome.
I wanted to, I don't mean to interrupt, but a thought came to mind. A few weeks ago, I saw in the paper where you all, if anybody's familiar with Rick Warren, and the purpose-driven church, and how it just swept the world. And a few weeks ago, you probably saw the paper where his son committed suicide, which is, it just goes to show you how a lot of the deception is now being revealed, you know, even at that level. Because here's a man who has led thousands into their purpose and how the, you know, direction and so forth. And now the world knows that he couldn't even deal with his own household because something was going on where his son committed suicide. So they painted him as a fine young man and so forth. But I think it just begins to show you that the curtain is being pulled back. You know, of course, people are going down Yellow Brick Road, as was said, and as you said, Miguel, and you go down that road and you pull back the curtain, and they're saying, pay no attention to this. He was a really good guy, but he killed himself.
Yes.
So it leads me to say, believe that, or know that what you put out there, you know, I'm suspicious of it. Well, we're suspicious of it because we know it's based on dogma, but it had no power to even save your own son to keep his life, you know, intact. So a lot of these things are happening. You're beginning to see. I saw it when Zachary Timms was found in the New York hotel room with you know, with drugs, you know, and he was in there by himself. So it's the curtain is being pulled back on a lot of this deception and the dogma.
The mysticism is dying because it's the blind faith that in other words, they need the blind faith. That's what keeps them alive.
Right.
And just like the fiat and faith are related.
Okay.
When the faith of the fraud dies, the power of it dies. Yes, because it's the full faith and credit of the United States upon the heirs estate. Remember the Berlin Conference? 1884, 1885, Christian nations met to divide up and divvy up the Ottoman Empire, including the Moorish Empire. And so when you're looking at the secret treaty of Verona, with it being brought to the floor of the House of Representatives, the American Diplomatic Code, 1884. Then 18, go ahead. You understand? Then on the floor, they talk in 1862, and then bringing it in, discussing it, and then making reference to the Monroe Doctrine. So now you're dealing with acts of states. So when you're talking acts of states, you're dealing with nation state. So all this stuff, you know, from an international perspective, is hitting the fan. The people who haven't been educated, you know, looking at other things, you know, with UCCs and all, they're not looking at this stuff as dead. You know, our real problem is the heirs to the world's largest estate is still playing games. And we're trying to wake them up. Europeans trying to kill them off. So they, you know, because it's like this. This is what's really going to happen. You're Moorish American, it won't matter whether you have any money or not.
Right.
You can just go claim stuff.
That's right.
You know, and that's what they're afraid of. That's what they're really afraid of, that you finally recognize this. And you're bumping through hoops, jumping through hoops, thinking about processes, thinking about, you know, UCC1 financial statement. You should be making a UCC1 if you're going to do anything. UCC1 estate statement. How about that?
It's mine.
You know, I'm just really, you know, because once you really understand this thing, because all the instruments that are moved, even under the UCCs, has nothing to do with money. It has to do with movements into an estate. Because the account on money is closed. They ain't got none. The issue is estate. But if they can get you arguing money, they know you're not competent yet.
The issue with the United States government right now, with the sequester. Now, my job is federally funded, okay? So this is the first time I know in 19 years of me being there that we don't know what our federal allocation is because they have this sequester. But in my mind, it has more to do with what's going on behind the scenes than Obama's policy and their desire to cut back.
They're using him as a beating board, but the real deal is what's going on in the real world politics.
On the international scene.
On the international scene, because this is really what's happening. Bankrupt entity can't continue to keep doing business when it's been bankrupt 4 times. Because it's bankrupt first, 1 time, it's out. Now, so forget the bankruptcy, consider Sina Dia, 61, they're dead. They're counting, they have difficulty now because people are nationalizing in droves. But decades past, they weren't as concerned because even though there were a lot of nationals, there were a couple million nationals, their concepts were not clear. They were looking at this from a religious perspective. In their mind, what they thought was religious perspective. But people are beginning to understand the estate issue. Even though, you know, it's like they're dragging and kicking and scratching.
Yes.
You know, they're coming into the 22nd century. You know, now that they don't, or if they don't, is relevantly irrelevant because of the rest of the world is doing it, which means the fact that you have other nation states that are nationalizing their properties, their land, electrical grids, apartment buildings that hedge funds have investment in. This is basically what has happened. Study Venezuela and Bolivia. and that'll give you an idea of what's happening to the stock market. A lot of your hedge funds from, say, New York, right? And this deals with people's so-called 401ks, 4 half Ks, whatever. Yeah, well,
okay.
Are invested in buildings, apartments, other public edifices in other nation states. And this is what people don't understand. We're going to close out in a minute, y'all. So when Hugo Chavez nationalized Venezuela, they nationalized rice fields, sugar, they nationalized oil, they nationalized the electric grid, and they nationalized all apartment buildings.
That stops them from stealing from them.
So what happens is now they trying to move it to Bolivia, and immediately Bolivia nationalized. You see what's happening in South Africa, etc., where the Europeans are scared to go on vacation now.
Yep.
Because they go on vacation, they come home, brothers are sitting there on the porch drinking tea.
How was your vacation?
Seriously, that's been going on, and so what did they go to New Zealand? About 800,000 went to New Zealand, and they wouldn't let them enter. They came with that white stuff. No entry. See, so even that white and black stuff, that stuff's hitting the fan around the world, even though these people here are still asleep. They're still trying to tell them stop playing that white and black stuff, which makes them incompetent. If you understand, but by the rest of the civilized world nationalizing in droves, all the instruments are dead. See, so their investments are dead. And then by the Moors nationalizing, even though a lot of their concepts aren't clear, the fact that they even put them papers out there kills the capacity of them to continue to play executor. Because by international law, when the heirs of an estate begin to demonstrate any level of competency, the estate must be delivered.
That's right.
You know, the reason they got away with it because they had enough of our leader guys convincing these people that they were minorities. Which killed the capacity of them to inherit irregardless of age. But now that they're beginning to study law, finally, you understand what I'm saying? Now they're what you call descendable. And so they don't want to descend, how do you say, so what they're trying to do, they're trying to sell everything, parking lots, stop signs, bridges,
cesspool.
Yeah, everything. So, and then in violation of international law, in violation of rights of indigenous people. So now you have the organization of unaligned states. And so you have all the American states, and then you have all of the Islamic states and the American states that are aligned now in an unaligned party or union, distinguished in the order of, but distinguished from the UN. And so now it's absent of Britain, U.S. corporate entity. And so now, what that represents is that the rest of the civilized world is appealing to us, but still because we're the heirs. We're the cog to the wheel. And so these Europeans are going to be throwing out everything. UCCs, somebody else to see, P on me, and go for that too. You know, anything that generates you giving him finance, but it's not so much that, but going to him, asking him for permission or an apostille implies that you're still declaring him the executive. Islam, y'all?
Islam.
Learn something? Dr. Nyla's doing, come up for a minute, please, Dr. Nyla. She'll be in Philadelphia tomorrow, y'all.
Islam. Especially for those of you who kind of been walking with me on my journey to take my book and bought my book. I have an opportunity that open up for me. Tomorrow I'll be doing 3 pieces, hair fairs, and 2 other pieces at the Philadelphia Natural Hair Show. So I'm excited that I'll be on the stage somewhere between 1 and 3, doing 3 of my poems and doing a book signing up there. And the ancestors really opened it up for me because I didn't even have to pay for, I didn't have to pay for a table or anything. And it's $349 and up for the tables. So that'll be tomorrow. If anybody's in Philadelphia and going to the Natural Hair Show, that's where I'll be sharing some of my poems. So I just want to thank you again for your support.
Hi.
Anybody? 192 stand. Islam. 192 stand. Yes. Also, Islam, go on. Islam.
I had a friend of mine who recently was going to go to her uncle's funeral in Guyana. And at the last minute, they had whatever airline we have here, I don't know, United, American, whatever it was, they told her that she couldn't go because they're not going over there ever again. And only airline that can go over there is the Caribbean airline. And so the Caribbean's trying to get all the people who had already scheduled to go to Guyana to fit on their planes. And so, so she couldn't go, but she missed the funeral. And I was asking him, does that have anything to do with why they're pulling out? Well, their excuse was that they're bringing drugs over here, and every time we get drugs, every time they bring drugs over here, we're getting a fine, and so we're not going to that country any longer.
You already know that's weak. That's not a valid issue. They've been doing drugs. They've been bringing drugs on those major airlines. The real deal of it is because they're nationalizing all of South American countries.
They don't want you to go over there.
No. They're not losing that fiat. The deal of it is because they're nationalizing everything, and the U.S. corporation is dead. They're de facto on every front because they could take the plane. That's what it is.
Okay.
No, it is.
I understand, brother. It's just amusing.
So remind you again, anybody that needs the 192 congressional stamp, save your stuff. One black star, fourth edition. Islam.